Welcome to a new photography post-processing tutorial video. Today we're going to be working on this snowy owl. So bird photography today. Okay, first thing we're going to go to the develop module, and here we're going to click under lens correction, and we're going to apply the remove chromatic aberration and enable the profile correction. You see how the respective lens is selected. Looking at the histogram real quick, we can see that the image has been exposed to the right, so everything looks good. There's no clipping, and now we're going to go ahead and crop the image. So here we have to think how we want the final image to look like, what composition we want. And pressing the X key, I'm going to go on a vertical composition, and I'm just going to adjust the image to make sure that the subject is on the top. Let's say the top right corner. I'm just here using the rules of thirds. So just, I'm moving the image to make sure that it's on that intersection. Okay, so I think it looks good like that. Now we're going to be working on, we're going to remove any spots that we have, any dust spots. Remember to click visualize spots on the bottom left, and you can see here clearly where we have some spots. So just adjust your brush with your mouse, just scroll and start clicking on the dust spots that you want to remove. Okay, moving to the basic module, to the basic panel. Now we're going to start adjusting the temperature of the image. This image, I want it to be a little bit cooler. It's nice blue in the background. So I move the slider to the left until I get the desired blue that I want on the background. For the tint, you can play here. You can move the slider left or right to have it more green or red. I'm just going to leave it like that, just a tiny little bit of red. And then I'm going to work on the highlights. As you know, I like to reduce the highlights, move the slider to the left. And that's because I usually expose to the right, meaning that my histogram is pushed to the right. Then we're going to work on the shadows. We're just going to play with them and see what makes sense. I'm just going to leave them in 0 for now. And now let's look at the whites and the blacks. Holding the Alt key and moving the slider to the right, you can see where we start getting this white clipping in the owl. We do not want that. We can increase the whites just a little bit, but we don't want any clipping in this image. So we're going to leave it in 0. Actually, there's no need to adjust anything. And then the blacks is what we can move to the left, just to bring more darker areas of the image. But yeah, for this image, I'm also going to leave it in 0. Okay, now we're going to adjust the clarity. For this image, it's okay if we go a little bit higher, if we scroll to the right. There's no haloing or any weird effects from increasing the clarity for this specific image. So here we're just bringing some contrast and a little bit more detail in our main subject. The haze, same thing. We can play with it a little bit. We move the slider to our right to see how what it does to the owl. And well, let's see. I think I'm going to leave it in 0 for now. I think this looks good enough. And vibrance, I like to move the slider to the right to have a good saturation of colors, good vibrant colors in the image. I think around +29, +20, I think it's a good value there. So you see the sky is blue. With the Y key, we can compare the before and after. The sky is already looking a lot better. The owl looks whiter and it's better defined. With the L key, you can turn off the background so that you don't have any distracting elements. Okay. Continuing with our workflow. The exposure and the contrast sliders, I like to use them at the very end when I'm done with the basic module. Here in the histogram, you can see that we expose to the right, so there's a lot of light in this image. It's very well exposed. It's well moved to the right, let's say, or exposed to the right. So I'm just going to play with the contrast right now. Exposure seems to be okay. So again, when you set a value, you can double click on the slider and it's going to reset back to 0 so you can compare before and after. Okay, here I'm just trying to see what's the difference if I move the contrast all the way to the right or to the left. For this image, I'm trying to make sure that we don't lose any detail on the owl's face. And interestingly enough, if I move the slider, the contrast slider to the left, that's when we get more details on the face of the owl. All right, now let's work on the HSL and color panel. First thing, we're going to work on saturation. I click on this selection tool, and then I just put the mouse on the color that I want to adjust, in this case the sky. And then with the keys, with the up key and the down key, I can see what's the effect that it does on the sky. So you can see how the blue slider is moving. In this case, I'm just going to do it right on the slider. And yeah, I think that looks good. Look at the before and after. It looks a lot different now. Better blue background. I like it. Okay. Here I'm just zooming to 1:1. I just want to bring up the eyes of the owl. So again, I'm just leaving the mouse on the yellow color of the owl and then playing with the up and down key. So just bringing up the saturation of the eyes. Okay. So let's look at 1:1 to have a better look at the eyes. And now I'm going to play with the luminance. So the luminance is going to make certain colors brighter or darker. In this case, I want the eyes to be brighter. I want them to show better, to pop up, let's say. So look at the difference right now just by increasing the luminance on the yellow of the eyes. Okay. Now let's work on the detail. Let's do some sharpening here. Before, I like to adjust the masking. So holding the Alt key and then moving the slider to the right, I'm showing, or I'm selecting where the sharpening is going to be applied. Everything that's black, it's excluded. Everything that's white is where we're going to apply the sharpening. And in this case, I don't need to sharpen the sky, of course. I just need to sharpen the owl. So I move it until I have the selection that I'm comfortable with. That's okay. So now we zoom 1:1. This is very important so that we actually can see how the image changes as we increase the sharpening value. Here around 70, I think it's a good value. Usually that's my go-to value, 70, and then you can adjust, you can increase or decrease depending on how much noise you're getting on the image. And then luminance around 40, maybe 30. Again, what we're trying to do here is just reduce the noise introduced by sharpening. And again, look at the difference here, how well defined the owl looks just with these quick adjustments that we have done. Look at the details on the face. We can see the feathers a lot better. We can see the eyes a lot better. Also the feathers on the body, they look a lot more defined. And yeah, that's kind of what we're trying to do here, enhance the original image that we captured. Okay. Okay, now let's look at it again, the before and after with the Y key. With L, I turn off the background to remove any distractions. It looks a lot better already. All right, so let's go ahead. And the next adjustments that we're going to do are specifically in the owl. That's our main subject, and that's what we want to enhance. So zooming 1:1 here, I'm just looking at what else we could do. Actually, let's do zoom 2:1 to have an easier view of the face of the owl, and specifically we're going to work in the eyes. So with the adjustment brush, I'm just going to paint over the eyes where I specifically want to do the adjustment. If I click on the bottom to show the mask overlay, you're going to see red the area where this brush is going to be applied. So it's a good way to guide you and see where you're actually applying the adjustments that we're about to do. In this case, I'm just going to focus on the eyes. That's the area that we're going to work on. And that's why I zoom 2:1 so that we have a better view of the eyes of the owl. Okay, so if you press the O key, you can turn off the show mask overlay. Okay, so my recommendation is to leave it on while you're brushing and then turn it off when you want to actually apply the adjustments. All right, so zooming 1:1 and increasing the exposure to see how the final image might look like. This is a key part on when you are editing either wildlife or even an image of a person, you want to bring up the eyes. That's very, very important for the subject. So we increase the exposure a little bit. Now I'm playing with the contrast a little bit also. I'm increasing it as well. Shadows also, let's increase the value, moving the slider to the right. Remember to double click when you want to reset the value to 0 to see the before and after. I think like around 14 looks fine. You can also play with the clarity a little bit. And here's something very important. When you're doing the adjustments to the eyes of your subject, you don't want to do anything too drastic that's going to make it look like a zombie or it's going to look weird, right? You just want to enhance the eyes of the subject. So comparing real quick before and after, I think the adjustments so far are looking good. And now I'm going to increase the saturation. I want to bring up that yellow, that gold color that you can see in the eyes of the owl. So this is a very important part here, adjusting specifically the eyes. So double clicking to see the before and after. Okay, let's reduce it just a little bit. And this is also a matter of personal taste. As long as you're happy with your image and it doesn't look very strange, that's good. So let's leave it around there. And last thing I'm going to play with is the noise. So I just want to see if the eyes don't look too sharp or if they look a little bit strange from a definition perspective. So let's play with the noise a little bit, moving to the right. Let's go 2:1 to have a better view of the adjustment. And remember also double clicking to reset the adjustment to see the before and after, so you can have a better idea if you're actually doing something or if it's not noticeable. I think it looks fine there. Again, let's compare the before and after with the Y key. It looks good. I just zoom out a little bit and yeah, the image looks nice. I like how it's turning out so far. Okay. The last thing we're going to do, we're going to use the radial filter, and here we're just going to apply it outside the owl. Specifically, we are going to darken the area around the owl to bring the viewer's attention to our subject. So it's going to be, the owl is going to be brighter, and that's what we want. We want it to pop up. Everything that looks red, as you can see here, when you click on select a show mask overlay, it's where the brush is going to be applied. And you can adjust here the feather on the right, the size of the feather, to see how much or how less you want to apply the effect. And what we're going to do is just reduce the exposure. That's how we're darkening the area around the owl. If you do it too much, it looks too unnatural. You can start seeing this white circle or brighter circle around the owl, to be precise. And you don't want the effect to be too rough. That doesn't look good. Again, it's a matter of personal taste. I don't think that will look good. So just a little bit, we reduce the exposure just a little bit around the owl where the filter is being applied. Very good. And that's it. Let's compare the before and after with the L key. Let's turn off the background, and here you can see the big difference between the original image and the final image. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you liked this video. Let me know if you have any comments, and please remember to subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much.